The world of hydroplane racing. Monster machines that buck and reel. A stampede of 10,000 horsepower that chokes the sky with clouds of liquid dust. Men who dare to saddle up these beasts, half bronco, half shark, and gallop them at 200 miles per hour across a wild frontier. The fast frontier of unlimited hydroplane racing. They race across America, from the romantic Hawaiian Islands and historic Pearl Harbor to the great meandering waterways of the nation's heartland, to the glistening skylines and coastlines of the Northwest. They race on a tightrope of white, slashing across a background of blue, faster, more powerful, more dynamic than any other boat that ever touched water. These are boats that fly on a rooster tail, a flight that would challenge a test pilot's nerves. These are the monster machines that buck and reel. Every race, a stampede of 10,000 horsepower that chokes the sky with clouds of liquid dust. This is the story of the men who dare to saddle up these beasts, half bronco, half shark, and gallop them at 200 miles per hour across a wild frontier, the fast frontier of unlimited hydroplane racing. Unlimited hydroplane racing. Life on a fast frontier that traditionally stretches from the Atlantic coast all the way across the heartland American waterways to the shores of the Pacific here in Hawaii, where the racing season ends. But it's not just places that draw us to the sport of hydroplane racing. Hi, I'm Greg Lewis, and I suppose you could define the sport as being the fastest, sexiest, most high-tech machines on water screaming around a circle of speed. But somehow, that seems as incomplete as saying Diamond Head is just a hill outside of Honolulu. In fact, hydroplane racing is as grand as any sea tale. It's a daunting quest by daring, even death-defying men, driven to capture not just victories and trophies, but something as elusive as it is coveted. To take the ultimate ride on the outer limits of the fast frontier. And their racing season begins here.
Hi, Detroit. This is Denny McLean on WXYT All News Talk Radio AM 1270. We're talking sports, but not the Tigers or the Lions, although this sport does roar. This weekend, it's Thunderfest time. Hydroplanes on the Detroit River, the most important single race of the season, the Gold Cup.
Just as Denny McLean dominated baseball with his 31 wins in 1968, Miss Budweiser has dominated unlimited hydroplane racing. 75 career wins. 11 world titles, 7 Gold Cups, and now she's here in Detroit before 600,000 fans to race for her third straight Gold Cup. She's the fastest lady on the water, campaigned by the most visionary man in the sport, Bernie Little.
Yes, sir, I sure am. Thanks, Dick.
It's a hell of a build-up all year. You're preparing your boat, your crew's working hard, everything's going perfect, and you know you got a winner. And you get out on the dock, and it's there, and it's happening.
Because Little makes it happen. When his regular driver was injured in a preseason car racing accident, rather than curse fate, Bernie Little quickly hired veteran Scott Pierce. A second-generation driver whose father died from injuries suffered in a hydroplane crash, Pierce has always dreamed of racing Miss Budweiser and has dedicated this Gold Cup race to his father's memory. As the new season begins, no one doubts that Miss Budweiser's fiercest rival will be the Winston Eagle and the reigning Rookie of the Year driver, Mark Tate. But when Miss Budweiser qualifies on the Detroit River with an average speed of 158 miles per hour, a new record, and 10 miles per hour faster than the Eagle, the rookie becomes much less of a threat, especially after Tate suffers control problems in the second of 4 preliminary heats on the 2.5-mile oval course. And a moment later, when Pierce displays his driving daring by skillfully maneuvering Miss Budweiser inside the Eagle to dominate Tate and win the heat, a third consecutive Gold Cup, the oldest trophy in all motorsports, seems all but assured for Bernie Little. And then the final. The last time unlimited hydroplane racing will use the countdown start system. The boats roar toward the line. Pierce is second from the inside, at full throttle. Tate's bright orange boat is lagging well behind. Bernie Little applauds what appears to be a perfect start. Miss Budweiser out in front. While Pierce soars over a smoother course, Tate must navigate the chowder in his wake. And then, certain triumph turns to torment. Pierce's apparently perfect start was in fact premature. Officials assess a 1-lap penalty. Pierce is instructed by walkie-talkie to slow down and save the boat. Tate takes the lead. His parents and wife, themselves steeped in the racing tradition, lead the crowd's cheers for the new Gold Cup champion. On the dock, Bernie Little's jaw grinds on the spoiled morsels of last place, and Jan Pierce consoles her husband. There are not many such defeats in Miss Budweiser's memory. In her different incarnations, from pistons to turbines, Miss Budweiser has won the Gold Cup 7 times since first capturing the sport's most coveted trophy in 1969. But Little doesn't consider the victories his most important achievement in the sport. When his close friend, driver Dean Chenoweth, died in a blowover accident in 1982, Little pioneered the sport's greatest safety improvement, the enclosed canopy, now a mandated feature for all new boats. As long as he's in the sport, Bernie Little will continue to push boat design into new territory on the fast frontier, not just on top of the waterline, but below it as well.
It's not much larger than a kitchen fan, but at 10,000 RPMs, this razor-sharp propeller can push Miss Budweiser through the water at more than 200 miles per hour. And on the outside of the rudder, 2 intake tubes, one's for measuring speed, the other for cooling the gearbox. And of course, the rudder is what turns the boat. But what is it that keeps it from just sliding wildly through those 180-mile-per-hour turns? That's a single dagger of steel, the skid fin. Of course, all hydroplanes have these features. What makes Miss Budweiser unique is not steel or fiberglass or high technology. It's her heart and soul, her legacy.
Will the legacy be renewed at the season's second stop, Evansville, Indiana, on the Ohio River? Bernie Little reassures Scott Pierce, who again has dominated qualifying with a speed just under 160 miles per hour. 100,000 fans have come to see Pierce and Tate battle and to witness a new starting format. No more countdowns. Now, when the boats approach the line all abreast, the green flag will drop. For Pierce, this change is one event too late. He knows now the only way to redeem himself is to win here, a first step toward winning the World Championship. And on every turn and every straightaway, Miss Budweiser skips across the surface on wings of speed. The victory is well deserved. More racing when we return to the fast frontier. "250 miles up the Ohio, where a lattice span of steel connects Kentucky to Madison, Indiana, a celebration is underway. A homecoming parade. Not for the high school football team, but for Miss Madison. She's the town sweetheart, a buxom miss, quite stout, with a reputation for being very fast. Miss Madison's a hydroplane, and she's owned by 13,000 citizens of Madison, Indiana. But is town support enough to overtake Miss Budweiser? Miss Madison may be the queen of the parade, but Bernie Little, greeting his fans with his wife Jane, is the king of the sport. In the heats, the biggest rival is the river itself. The Eagles' Mark Tate on the inside, and Miss Budweiser's Scott Pierce scream into the first turn side by side, until the river's own left hook almost knocks Tate out. Miss Budweiser survives the chop, But Jan Pierce senses more danger still lurking beneath the surface, and her husband's triumph in the heat isn't enough to allay concern. The heat win brings joy, but it is also clear that the sport's premier drivers are as different as the squares of black and white on the checkered flag they covet.
My competitor, Mark Tate over there, has been flying his boat real loose, and I've just elected to leave my boat a little bit closer to the water, and I think that that's the smartest thing to do.
Well, that's fine. If he's a little nervous, he doesn't know what my abilities are, and if Scotty feels that way, then that's a plus in our corner, because that's been one of my fortes throughout my racing career, to be able to fly the boat and drive it as hard as I can to my abilities.
Come on, keep it up, Scotty. Come on.
In the finals, Bernie Little exhorts his driver from his dockside perch. The green flag issues an invitation to speed, as much as one dares. Tate, in lane 3, pushes the Orange Eagle into the lead. Pierce, just inside and facing a tighter turn, pulls Miss Budweiser back. Then, at well over 150 miles per hour, they collide. Accidents like this can sink boats and maim drivers. But who is at fault? Does Pierce venture wide, or does Tate cut in? Was it beyond either driver's control? Perhaps the river is to blame. Incredibly, only the boats are damaged. The Eagle and Miss Budweiser limp in to finish 4th and 5th respectively, though they remain atop the season-long standings. But Miss Budweiser's once perfect curves are battered, bruised, and gouged. For race officials, a one-lap penalty against Tate. For the racers, an intensified battle for the season-long crown.
He's a young guy and he's a heck of a good driver, but you can't win these things in the first turn of the final. It's 5 laps, and hopefully he's learned from it.
I'd drive the boat the same way. I'm a racer, and I'm out there to win, and that's my job. And I drove the boat to the best of my abilities, and it happened.
News of the war offshore travels to Tri-Cities, Washington, site of the 4th race, faster than the boats themselves. But Miss Budweiser wins the qualifying with a new course record, 158 miles per hour. It is a different type of flight for the Eagle, on feathers still ruffled by the Madison crash. And so the crowd waits, not knowing if it will see a race or a rampage. The answer comes in the second preliminary heat. The approach toward the start looks perfect, but no sooner than Bernie Little begins to cheer, he is frozen with disbelief. The Eagle, her spoiler wing collapsed and flapping, and Miss Budweiser, her left sponson shattered, have collided again in the final turn before the start line. Incredibly, they finish the heat, but Tate will be fined and penalized a lap. Another infraction would risk disqualification. Back in the pits, another race begins with tape and glue and disbelief.
Well, we were scoring up. The race hadn't even started yet. We were down in this pit turn and just going around about 110 mile an hour, very, very slow. And somehow or another, Mark lost it again and just ran over the back of the Miss Budweiser. So it's put a real hurt on us. It's pretty disappointing.
But these types of things are going to happen in racing, especially with the new format. We really tighten up the bunch, and you got to drive hard and stay clean and get out of the first turn in good shape to have an opportunity to win.
Winning now is up to the crews, who begin a race of their own to make their boats seaworthy before the next heat. When Heat 3 commences, the Eagle, less damaged by the crash, soars into the lead, her blue-taped sponsons little more than a curiosity at high velocity. While Miss Budweiser races without a wing and a prayer. Tate is first, Pierce last. The predatory Eagle snatches another claw full of points. Before the final, Miss Budweiser's crew uses everything but a fairy godmother's magic to turn their ragged Cinderella back into a reigning princess. When the race begins, the wing is back on, but the beauty of flight is still missing. On the choppy water, Miss Budweiser is less boat and more Brahma bull. And then, hydroplane racing's most dreaded moment, a flip.
Oh, no, that's a Madison. Oh!
A red flag stops the race. Before Bernie Little's introduction of the enclosed cockpit, a flip often meant death. Injuries from a flip killed Scott Pierce's father. But Miss Madison driver Mike Hansen is okay. The race will not resume. The Eagle is awarded first, Miss Budweiser second. But as the sun sets and the Miss Budweiser team drives home to Seattle, an unwelcome reality rides with them. 3 races remain before the clock strikes midnight on the season. They have less than a week to rebuild their boat